March 24th, the students of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School are calling for a day of protest across the nation.
Shame on you!
This march has obviously become pretty big. You guys should come.
Budum was looking into tickets. He really wanted to take Bovneet.
We need to stand up to the NRA. We need to do what's right for kids, not guns.
As a mom, big events scare me now. Like, this is the world that we live in. And I understand the circular argument behind that too, because it's like, if we don't make a change and we aren't there and we don't show up, then how will things ever change?
It's important because they need to be a part of that energy. And who knows what kind of a change that can inspire in them.
Sensible gun laws now! Sensible gun laws now!
Hi, and welcome to It's Your Time to Shine. Today we're going to be doing a special episode as a follow-up to the March for Our Lives in Washington, D.C. And then there were about 800 sister marches that occurred all over the country. I was able to attend the one in San Antonio, Texas, while Lisa, my husband Budum, and my daughter Bovneet attended the march in Washington, D.C. So Lisa, I'm really looking forward to hearing more about your experience and telling you a little bit about what I experienced during the march.
Yeah. We talked about this a few weeks ago, how you were so hesitant about sending Bovneet. Now, how do you feel after she's attended the march?
I have to say that it impacted her so much. She has so much to share. She really feels connected. It's been inspiring to hear her interacting with the world in a totally different way, seeing other young people in a different way. She really was deeply affected and changed by the march. It's actually really beautiful.
For the Parkland students and all these other shootings that's happening, there has been like a big awareness. Like, a lot of people know about it in my school and all the other schools, and like just kind of enhance or like improve our security just to make sure like everyone's safe.
You know, we talked a little bit about my hesitation. I didn't actually say too much. We had the podcast a few weeks ago about gun control and how, as a mom, there are things that, of course, I want change, and of course, I want the world to be safer. But as a mom, I also want to shelter my children and my family a little bit, right? And I think, although I think that that's a natural feeling, I also can admit now how difficult it was for me to even talk about the march. Like, as Budum was planning for the event and talking through logistics, I just felt myself shutting down and like having to go to the bathroom or having to get a drink or, do other things because it was too much anxiety, and it was very, very difficult for me to even think about.
It's funny because we want to go to these marches. We of course want to be part of that change. We want to show our support, be inspired. But I had this, not the same, but I can completely understand because obviously we didn't take Alyssa to the march. She's just 3 years old, and I just didn't take her. But when I was at the march, I noticed a lot of people took their 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, and I was like, why didn't I bring her? And then you have this moment where I don't know about the sister marches, but I had this moment at the march. While I was really inspired, it was amazing energy. There was that one moment where I'm like, what if someone took out a gun right now and shot everyone? Then I just let that voice went away very quickly. But the point is, it still happens,
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah.
So but I still had that moment, that one moment. What if it happened? And that's the reason to go to these marches, because we don't want this to happen anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you get a sense that change is possible when you go to a march like that.
Right.
And that's the thing that I really want to hold on to. Like I need it for myself. I need my children to experience it. I want to be inspired. And the older I get, the more I feel that it's very difficult to be inspired. It's very difficult to connect with one another.
Yeah.
Maybe we call it or think of it as the ability to like have your heart be open to others and to like listen to the experience of others. But I absolutely want my kids to, to have that and to be able to experience it. And I felt that very much at the march. There's something about fear. And I think when you're a parent, the fear instinct becomes stronger. Like it's stronger and it's louder and it's crazier. And it's just present all the time. And I think for me as a mom, and I am, I tend to be an anxious person. My children sometimes call me a worry wart and always say, they'll say things to me, comparing me with their dad, like, oh, Mom, you worry too much. Don't worry about this. We'll be fine.
Right.
But I think that a big part of being a parent and being a mom that can be present for your child and allow them to have their own experiences is taming the fear. It's not going to go away.
Right. Yeah. You have to. I know. I agree completely. You can't pretend it's not there.
No. And I think pretending that it's not there I would just be lying to myself.
And I think it would be amplified at that point, actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I have anxiety, I have fear, I have concerns, but I want them to dream. I want them to chant chance. I want them to feel what it is to be in America,
right,
and have the freedom of speech, and to be able to have the discourse, and to be able to dissent, and to be moved by something.
Yeah, no, those kids at the march were inspiring. I don't know about the sister marches. I think you had other speakers, but for the one in D.C., it was all kids. All kids.
Yep, but Neith was telling me that it was nobody over the age of 20.
Yeah, I think 18 was the oldest. 18 was the oldest, and I just thought that was genius what they did.
Oh, so awesome. Yeah.
All just kids' voices, because that's what we needed to hear. Let's just take a listen to Emma, who was amazing.
6 minutes and 20 seconds with an AR-15, and my friend Carmen would never complain to me about piano practice. Aaron Feist would never call Kira Miss Sunshine. Alex Schachter would never walk into school with his brother Ryan. Scott Beagle would never joke around with Cameron at camp. Helen Ramsey would never hang out after school with Max. Gina Montalto would never wave to her friend Liam at lunch. Joaquin Oliver would never play basketball with Sam or Dylan. Elena Petty would never. Kara Lugren would never. Chris Hickson would never. Luke Hoyer would never. Marquine Duque Aguiano would never. Peter Wang would never. Alyssa Al-Hadaf would never. Jamie Guttenberg would never. Meadow Pollock would never.
You know what was the most powerful part of her speech, which obviously everyone's talking about, is the 6 minutes of silence, 6 minutes and 20 seconds of silence, so that everyone could really put themselves in the shoes of those children who did not know what was next. I mean, everyone there was like, what's going on? We don't get it. She literally made everyone go through the same motions, like the unknown feeling of what's next.
Yeah, and it's that silence that makes us uncomfortable because it's an emptiness, right?
Exactly.
And we start to fill it.
I love silence.
I do too.
It depends, though. Actually, it depends. Let
Yeah.
me take that back. I mean, I do love it in depending context. In that context, silence, certain context. But sometimes our minds are so loud and noisy and there's so much going on that just silence makes you just feel a little more centered. Even if you're with someone, it's actually, you're both centered at the same time. We've talked about it. Just a side note, just silence is the best conversation I've ever had. So
yes, and I think with you and I, because we have a comfort,
right,
and I feel safe, and we have that relationship, we're okay with the silence. We can both go and sit somewhere and just be silent for a little while and not be worried.
Have a silent podcast. I'm just kidding.
Right. We should totally do that. That would be a great meditation. But the truth is, silence is very powerful,
right,
and it can be very strategic. And I agree,
Mm-hmm.
it can be very meditative, like what you're indicating. But as an anxious and scared mom, it can also be really crippling.
Right.
And
right.
Sometimes the outside noise is what quiets my inside voices. And I know that probably sounds a little dark and twisted, and but it can be dark.
Yeah, and it's both. You don't want silence all the time. You don't want music and noise all the time. That's what makes an audio edit good,
Right.
So you want them
Yes.
both.
I heard the editing humor there. But I do think that silence, that's what made her speech so powerful.
Yes, and she's so confident. Talk about the kind of I like all of them. I loved all the speeches. I especially loved how they brought in other types of gun violence, not just school, because it isn't just school violence. As a matter of fact, we need to focus. I'm not undermining that by any means, but we can't forget that every day there are over 100 people who die from gunshot wounds. I think it's 100. So I'm glad that they brought in personal stories. kids who are working to combat this. I'm just glad that they brought in all those children as well. And it wasn't just to school shootings, it was shootings as a whole.
Right. And I think the Parkland shooting, the activism and the inspirational aspect of the students there, it became like a tipping point.
Right.
The gun violence problem, the easy access to guns, it's been a concern for many years.
Right.
And in some urban areas, it's been decades and decades. Like
Right.
you hear, I heard a clip. So although I wasn't there in DC, I heard some clips of some of the speakers that came out and spoke, and they grew up with around guns. They lost, brothers and fathers and neighbors, and they just lived in that environment where they were constantly in fear. I find it very difficult to discern between a single traumatic event that lasts 6 minutes and 11 seconds versus a lifetime of traumatic events
Right.
that you just become conditioned to. I
Right.
think there's stress from both of them.
Yeah, definitely. We finally talked about it, and we talked about tangible change. Everyone there in the middle of all the speeches kept screaming, vote them out, vote them out. And that just made my heart happy, because I'm all about, in the end, it's about voting. We just need to vote these people out, vote the people you want in, exercise that right. I have a clip where I started doing it, and then Param screamed with me. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
Vote them out.
but you know what you're saying, that change with young people? It always starts with young people. I was actually thinking about that. All big major movements start with young blood. Civil rights movement, Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, just any of the big leaders, they all started young. And it just made me think about what is it, because I think teenagers get a bad rep. I really do. I think part of their bad rep is because we think they have a bad rep. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because you know that more than anyone, because you have like an awesome teenager. Like Pavneet is awesome. Like I was comparing throughout. I was like, so whatever Alyssa's doing now, did you do that when you were her age? Is Alyssa going to be like you, Pavneet?
And her response was like, I have no idea, because I can't even remember to bring my gym shorts down, even though I have gym every day. I don't remember that. Is that what she said? I wanted to talk about the children being inspired, because the San Antonio March, well, let me back up first and kind of like explain how when we went to the march. So it was me and two of my girlfriends, and we had our kids with us. So we had 5 kids between the 3 of us. And I had every intention of going, and they had every intention of going. And yet somehow there was a comfort in knowing that we would know at least 2 other people and their kids that were going as well. And the best way that I can explain that is we live in a state that's a red state, and there are many liberal-leaning people all over the state. But there's always this low-lying issue with Second Amendment rights and Second Amendment discussion. Like Texans don't want anyone to take their guns away. And I don't want to take any Texans' gun away.
Right.
But it can become a point of contention very quickly. And so I thought it was interesting that I had every intention of going, and my friends had every intention of going, and yet we were like, but you guys are going to come, right?
Right.
But you'll be there, right?
Right.
And so I think it's possible. I'm going to just be really honest here, which I need to do more of. I need to be honest with myself. I'm always honest with you, but I need to be more honest with myself. I was a little worried that there wouldn't be anyone there.
You were worried that there wouldn't be anyone there at the Sister March?
Yeah.
Because you're in Texas? That's why?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I thought maybe, I kind of thought like, okay, well, what if only 100 people come? There's nobody there. Or what if there's like hecklers that come to protest the protest? But, so this gives you a little bit of insight into how my mind works, being an anxious mom. And I'm not really crazy about crowds.
Right.
And when I pulled in, so, our rally started at City Hall, and then we marched up to the Alamo. And the Alamo, historically for San Antonio and for Texas, is an important place. So we drive up to City Hall, and I had no problem finding parking. Like There was no traffic going into the city.
Were you like, oh no traffic, easy parking? Okay.
Yes, I pulled right into the parking garage, like across the street from City Hall. So like, you know, it's not naturally, I'm like, oh gosh.
You're like, why didn't I spend 5 hours looking for parking?
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, it's like not something that anyone else in any other city in the country would have been complaining about, right? But in my mind, I'm like, and so I get out and I'm paying for parking, and my kids are like, are you ready? Let's go. And we took our dog with us as well. Okay. So we had Bailey with us. Mm-hmm. And so I was holding the dog, and I said, this is how I start to like prepare myself under the ruse of preparing my kids. I say to them,
under the ruse,
it may not be too crowded, but if it is crowded, you know, I'll hold Bailey because I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable with the dog being there. And they're like, okay. And so, you know, we're walking, and I said, you know, it may not be too crowded, but it's fine. You know, we're here and we know why we're here. Mm-hmm. And my kids are kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever, Mom, you know. And so we turn the corner.
Right.
And I see City Hall, and it's a mass of people, thousands of people.
Oh, what a moment. With your internal thoughts and then that, I can really, really feel it.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was like, I felt like it was slightly overcast, so it wasn't super hot. You know, it's already starting to get hot in Texas.
Right.
And I just saw all these people, different colors, shapes, sizes, with dogs, with little people, wheelchairs.
Right.
I saw so many different faces and signs.
That's awesome.
And some of them were witty, and some of them were brutally honest and direct. My heart fluttered because I was like, oh, yes, there's unity. Yes, there's solidarity. Yes, there's hope.
Yeah, one of my favorite signs was when I said, let me remember it verbatim, when I said I would rather die than do my math homework, it was just hyperbole.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I'm laughing because it was witty, but it's like, hey, you know,
true.
It's just, true.
Yeah.
Like witty, but exactly hits you. Like, please don't take us literally, please.
Yes. One of the ones that I just thought, like, this lady nailed it. There was some older women that had signs, mm-hmm. and they had a series of signs. They'd created them together, and it said, like, gym, not guns, mm-hmm. algebra, not ammunition. You know, they had made some signs. Mm-hmm. And then one of them said, no, really, guns do actually kill people. The one that like really brought tears to my eyes said, if I die in school, lay my body on the steps of Congress.
Oh, wow.
And so powerful.
Yeah.
And a young woman was carrying that sign. I mean, she was young, like, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I thought of you with one of the signs because there was one person who had a super witty sign, mm-hmm. and it said, things that are regulated more than guns. And it said, like, Sudafed, Kinder eggs, which I know you have.
No way, Kinder eggs. You're right, and they started regulating that. I remember being so mad, like, what? What are they doing with Kinder Eier? Kinder Eier. That's how much I know about Kinder eggs, because it's Eier, because Eier is eggs in German. Anyway, go on.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And now you have authenticated your German, like living there for many years and speaking fluently. I didn't buy it, but now I'm like, she's got it. She knows about Kinder eggs.
And the sweet little surprise. Uh-huh.
Right. Mm. But the thing is, like, it's true. Kinder eggs are
regulated.
Yeah.
No, it's...
So it just kind of puts things in perspective,
right.
And I agree with you.
Uterus,
it's like the young people and the inspiration.
Yeah.
I actually have a few sound bites from some young people at the march.
Let's listen to it. Let's listen to these sound bites.
Okay.
I think that sharing your opinion with people can help the world.
I wanted to come here because I want to stop gun violence, and it's not a good thing that people can just barge into schools and just like go and do whatever they want.
One of the chants that I liked was, our kids are under attack. What do we do? Stand up, fight back.
Our kids are under attack. What do we do? Stand up and fight back. Our kids.
Wow, these kids are just honest. They just say exactly what's on there. It's like these kids have heart, and that like goes away as you get older.
I totally agree, and I think there's a lot of social systems that we've created, and working in a corporate environment is one of them that like chips away definitely at your ability to really connect to other people.
Param and I were talking about that too that day. We were we were talking about how we just become so cynical. And I was, of course, thinking about it just from like a behavioral standpoint. And I'm like, we really are. As adults, we become almost too cautious. Like, I understand, I was saying teenagers have a bad rap. A lot of it's because part of their brains have not developed their judgment part and all this stuff. But I almost think that's a bit of a gift, because once it develops, we become a little too cautious. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yes.
So they have heart, we have judgment. It's a good combination for those kids and people like us who are supporting these children.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, all movements start from those kids, from children, early 20s. They're the motivators for the adults who understand their heart.
No, I totally agree. And I think let's go back even one step from that. You're right. There's so many movements started with young people that are in their 20s who are motivated and courageous to speak. But I think their motivation, their inspiration, that is a seed that's planted in them at an even younger age. And I have always kind of hypothesized that was true. But after this march, one commonality that I see here is this idea of you are not alone. And it's so beautiful and it's so simple, and it hits me because it's the thing that I've needed more than anything else in my life, is to know that I'm not alone. And it's the reason for our podcast.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. We're all in this together, in this ever-changing world.
Totally. Yes.
The good and bad, exactly. I think in the end, connection is where it's at. Our connections with others, our connections with the world around us, and our connection to ourselves.
I totally agree. Well said. If you were able to send a message to all the other students out there, what would it be?
It's just time for our generation to just step up.
I think it's important to not be afraid to speak up.
If you ever want to speak up for yourself, just tell a couple of other people, and I'm pretty sure they would help you, and you guys can make a change.
Don't make violence to make peace.
Don't fear all your life. Just be happy and live like this is the last day you will live.